Moving down the main menu, we'll come to the localization option here. Okay, under the localization option, we'll actually have the options to actually configure our units for our products. We can actually set up our languages, the countries, and we can actually go and set up our currencies. But the most two important things here are the actual taxes and tax rules. Everything else, as you will see, is pretty straightforward. But when we come to the taxes and tax rules, this is something you have to pay a bit more attention, as this will actually influence the taxes which are added to your shipping, for example, or to the actual price of your products. Okay, so let's start off with the localization. Here you'll find, first of all, the import a localization pack. Basically what this is, you are importing a pack for that particular country. So for example, I can choose Belgium, and I can import the states, I can import the taxes, the currency, the languages, the units, and I can actually change the behavior of the tax displayed for this group. Then it will ask me to download a pack data. Okay, once I have set up all this, so I can either choose, for example, I do not want to have different states for Belgium, and I can unselect this one. For the languages, maybe I do not want to have a language different to English, and I will unselect this one. And what I need to do after that is just hit on the import button located in the right corner of this section. Once again, this page contains many different sections, and make sure that once you actually make any changes to one particular section, you actually hit on the save button, which is always located at the end of that section in the lower right corner, like so. Okay, this is the main configuration. Basically, you are setting up the language for your online store. So by default it's English. Currently I have English and French. You're selecting the default country. There's a list of many different countries here, and the currency, and then the time zone. Once again, once you make changes here, make sure you hit on the save button. We'll come to the next section, which is actually called the localization, and this is basically where you can configure the units which are to be used with your products. So basically, when you actually download a package, all of this will be preset, but then if you want for some reason to change that, you can come here and, for example, change the distance unit from kilometers into miles, and once that is done, make sure you click on the save button, and that will actually save your changes. Moving a bit more down, you'll find some advanced options which are actually going to be referring to your server language and to your server country. Okay, we'll move into the languages now, which is the second option down the list. And basically this will show you all the available languages which you have. So if I, for example, go back to my localization and just here default languages, you can see that I have English and French. If I go into the languages, those two are available here, and also I can click on add new, and this will actually add a new language for my online store. Then I will go back to my localization, and from this drop down menu I'll have that language here. Okay, so this is how you will go about actually inserting a different default language, for example Spanish or something like that. Okay, then we'll move into something that's called zones, and here, as you can see, we have a couple of different continents. So for example, we have Europe, North America, Asia, Africa, Oceania, South America, Europe, non-EU countries, and the Central America option here as well. So basically these are the zones, and this is when you set up your tax rules and everything else. For this particular zones, those tax rules will apply. So if you have many different countries, so for example in Europe you can have, I don't know, France, Germany, Italy, and so on, where the taxes are all the same, and you can group those into a category or a group that's actually called a zone. So when you're actually creating your online product, you can just click this Europe, and all of the settings will actually be preset for that particular group. Okay, so this is the zones, and then we'll move into the countries. And this is basically where you would go about adding the countries to different zones. Okay, so basically all of the countries available here. So for example, I have France only enabled here on the first page, and basically by enabling any of this you can assign them to zones, and then you can have different text options. And for example, you have the different phone numbers here, prefix. So for example, for Germany it's +49 and so on. So basically this will give you a list of all of the countries, and once again you can go and add a new country by clicking on the add new country button right here. Moving into states. Okay, for example, this will give you all of the states in the United States of America, of course, and then you can actually go and select which states you would like to actually include for your products. So for example, we can see that it's actually got a lot of other different states, not just the states of the United States. And basically, if I go to the first page where there's only US states, so for example, Alabama and California might actually have different taxes. So for example, in Alabama it might be 15% of your price of your products, and in actual California it might be 17. So this is actually how it's been divided. And then if you have a couple of states which are exactly the same, you can group them and actually put them into the zones as well. So we have the countries where you have, for example, in some countries you do not have many different states, so for that country it's always, for example, 15% of your product price is your tax price. Okay, but then again, if you come to countries like United States, we have many different states, the taxes might actually vary, and then you can come here and actually add that individually. All right, moving down the list, we'll come to the currencies. As the name suggests, we'll have all the currencies here. At the moment I only have euro, which is enabled. I can go and add a different currency, and also have some recommended modules here as well. Following the list of my currencies is the current currency rates, so if you're changing from one currency to another, and then you have actually the automatic update of the currency rates here as well. Okay, that's pretty straightforward, and we'll move into the taxes. Okay, so I have a couple of taxes here listed. So basically this is all for France, and you can see that I have many different, well, I have 4 different percentages here. I have 20%, 10%, 5.5 and 2.1, and this is what I was actually talking when you're creating many different rules. So these rules are actually different from one another. Like I said, you have 20, 10, 5.5 and 2.1, and you can actually create a new tax here, and this is something that we are going to do in a second, so a bit more later, because basically what happens with Prestashop, we cannot directly apply a tax to a product. So what we can do is actually apply a tax rule to the product. So first of all, we have to register all relevant taxes and then create a tax rule for that tax in order to specify the countries that the tax applies to. And then finally we can actually set up the rule for the product, and this is a bit more complex procedure, and we'll actually go through one of these to actually see how we are going to assign some tax rules and taxes to our products. And then we have a couple of options here, general options for the tax, basically enable tax yes or no, display tax in the shipping cart yes or no, based on delivery address or the invoice address. So basically if you have someone from India basically buying something for, you know, China, this option here will actually say according to either invoice address, so for example whoever is paying you, or the delivery address, where is the tax going to be applied to. So whether it's going to be India in my case or China. So basically you can set up that in here, and then you can use something that's called eco tax here. Okay, tax rules is the next option down the list. Alright, so once again I have a couple of different tax rules, and I can go and set up a new tax rules for a group. And basically, like I said, you set up a tax rule, then you would actually assign that to a group, and then you will actually have that for your products. And this is something we'll have a look a bit more later. Okay, then we came to the translations. As the name suggests, this is where all of the translations is actually going to happen. Currently I have 2 languages enabled, and that's French and English, as we have seen previously. From my main country in last 30 days I have no orders, and then I have no actual translations of my front office. So make sure that you still know what a front office is. So basically there's 2 offices they called in Prestashop. There's the back office, which I'm currently logged in now, and there's the front office, which is actually your website. So there's been 0% of my translations of the front office, and then you can actually come here and modify some of your translations. You can add or update a language. So basically before you can translate from one language to another, you would come here and you would select from the list here. So I have the languages that I currently have available, which is English and French, and I can update those, or I can move down the list and, for example, find Spanish, Espanol, and then select that one, and I would actually go and add or update a language. Once that is done, I will have another language that will be shown here, which is going to be Spanish. Okay, import a language pack manually. So if you cannot find the language down in this list, you can come here and actually load that file from your computer and actually have that here as well. And then you can come and export the language. This is exactly the opposite from the previous section. So this is importing, this is exporting the language, and then you can come here and copy the language. Okay, so basically localization here has a lot of information and a lot of configurations which must be done correctly in order to first of all display your products properly, and then to actually make sure that the taxes are applied properly to your products. Like I've said, there's going to be a tutorial which will actually look into the taxes and how we can create the tax rules and then create a tax and then assign those taxes to a country and then on to our products. So localization, in a couple of words, is everything to do with your local settings, and it can be applied to many different countries.